So very likely people may trickle in. I try to give a couple of announcements. I also know that 2 members are still on that call. So they might try to hop over as well. And I also know that we get a lot of people watching the recordings. So I've gotten a couple of people texting that they couldn't make it, but they will be very excited to watch our presentation. So Maggie and Kat's Otter and Nicole, right? I got it right. Because last time I called you by the wrong name. I'm so glad to introduce you to Darcey from Claim Your Network. And I gotta tell you, like, I feel like Darcey is a gold mine because I think that for most people, whether you are in corporate or self-employed or entrepreneur or whatever, freelance or whatever you want to call yourself, networking is can be hard. And so I think there's an art to it. I think that it's an area where we can always learn and improve our skills and the way we enter into those relationships and conversations. So I'm going to pass the torch to you, Darcey. Thank you so much for being here.
Amazing. Am I able to share my screen?
Yep, I was going to make that possible right now, and I just clicked the wrong button. My apologies. One sec.
Awesome. Yes. So networking, I always say when it comes to networking, it's way easier to make sales, find leads, more opportunities in your business through networking because you get to be you, right? You don't have to worry about the social media part. You can just show up as you and that sells itself. So with that, I will share. I got a little presentation. I want to try to get as much as we can so you guys can get the most out of this. So we're going to kind of go through it a little quickly, but we will open it up for Q&A.
Hey,
and
Darcey.
Afterwards. Yeah.
If it's not in your presentation already, would you mind sharing how you got into this particular line of work?
Yes, it's coming.
Okay,
it's
good.
It's coming. It's a part of the presentation.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, it says on my side your screen sharing is paused, but if you guys can see it, then we're good to go. So yes, I am Darcey Elizabeth. I'm the founder of Claim Your Network. You should see a new screen now that shows a little bit of me speaking along with the amazing community that we are building in person.
Okay, so
And
all we can see is your title screen that says networking to leads.
yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
says, let's see if I get.
Do you want to try stop sharing and sharing again?
Yeah. Let's see if it's going to. Okay, maybe, just maybe. Okay, can we see that? Does it say Darcey Elizabeth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, must be I clicked the actual window instead of the screen. So here we are. So yes, I'm Darcey Elizabeth, the founder of Claim Your Network, where we do all things networking, from being an agency where we actually build out people's networking profiles to a virtual membership and in-person events. And this really was born about now would be 2 years ago, where I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was a corporate CPA and I had a son, and I knew that I needed more flexibility. So I started to like dip my toe into the entrepreneur world. And I realized real quick that networking was going to be the best way for me to build my business. It's the fastest way, it's the easiest, but I was really scared to get into the room. And when I mean scared, I would be like sweaty, face turning red, and simply didn't even know how to talk about what I was doing. Back then, it was more of a mindset coaching, did a lot of Reiki healing, and I got into these rooms with amazing women, and I would literally hide because I didn't know how to properly introduce myself. I didn't have that confidence there. And I remember I was in Arizona for a huge event, and I got so many opportunities, and I was ended up being in my own way. And what I mean by that is I was just too nervous. I didn't know how to communicate effectively. So with that, I started to get really fascinated with communication. I took some courses on communication. I took courses on relationships. I started to read all the books and the podcasts. And then from there, Claim Your Network was born. And it kind of fell into my lap when I was getting asked to do so many workshops on showing people how to get in the room. That was like, man, maybe I should create the room. And now we host events, we help people design events, and we have a podcast along with a magazine launching. So this is just your little reminder that if you're like, man, I want to grow my business, but I don't want to get on those virtual calls. I'm nervous to get in the room, or what if nobody talks to me? Just know it will all come together, and you can definitely move your business through networking. So that is how I got into it. And then what I want to really cover today is just a little bit of networking for conversion. You probably know that networking is huge when it comes to building your business. The more relationships you have, the more leads you're going to have, the more exposure you're going to have. But one of the things I see the most is people get in the room and don't have a clear introduction. And what that really does when you don't have a clear introduction is it leaves people guessing, like, okay, what exactly does she do? And they might ask or they might not, right? So it kind of leaves it open-ended. And then if they do ask, sometimes as the other person, if they're like, well, what exactly do you mean you are a networking agency, right? Sometimes people can feel the pullback. I used to introduce myself like 3 years ago as a 2.0 energy coach, right? Like helping people get to their next level. And people would obviously say to me, like, what is 2.0 energy coach? And it really had this reflection of I started to pull back and then I didn't want to introduce myself. So when you have a clear introduction, it lets people know exactly what you do. They're able to associate what you do with your face and your name. And that is where they're going to be able to remember you for future opportunities and leads, and even if people are recommending you. So one huge thing is make sure that your introduction is clear. And then one thing I always point out is that when you're having these conversations, when you're networking, whether it's on here virtually or in person, make sure in the conversation you are thinking about how you're going to follow up. Sorry about the spelling mistake there. But what I mean by that is so many times we get so worried about what we're going to say. But instead of worrying about what we're going to say, ask about them. And when you start asking people about them, it's actually going to help with your follow-up, which is what we're going to get into for a networking lead strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about resources. I know that we're virtually right now, but I do want to just touch on your social media bio real quick. And then also if you're in person, some tools you can use. I'm still a firm believer in business cards and promo cards because I think it's a huge benefit when someone gets home and they're going through their business cards and then they see your face, right? It's a good reminder and it leads them to follow up with you. I am going to give you guys access to our networking lead tracker if that's something you guys are interested in. And then also talking about really developing the relationships and making sure that you are cultivating the relationships, because even if they're not your ideal client, even though they may not be a lead, they might come in your world at some point. I know for me that I have developed a lot of relationships, and when I hold events, they might not be ideal clients that would want to come to the event, but they could be sponsors. They could be putting into our swag bags. So just really making sure that you're nurturing relationships. We're going to go real quick over the introduction because I'm sure that most of you have an idea of how to introduce yourself, but I would love in the chat if you could tell me what you do. So if you just want to drop in the chat what exactly you do, so you can drop your title or just give me I help statement, that would be great. I'm going to stop sharing just for 1 second so I can see. And if you're unsure, let me know that as well. The question was, what do you do? So tell me, like, if you have a title or tell me who you help. Give me a little background on what you do. So Maggie, you are a photographer specialized in women portraits. I love that, Maggie. That's amazing. And so many people are looking for that. So let's definitely connect after and let me know what area you're in. A lot of people are looking them for retreats and events right now too. And Nicole, you do technology training. Ooh, that is so needed. Love it. And then our Christy, amazing, helping coaches, power sales, automations. Awesome. All right. So the reason that I asked this, these are very clear, right? And then Elizabeth, you are a naturopath doctor looking to shift from one-on-one to virtual. Ooh, love it. So with these, I want you guys to think about your title and what you do. And the reason that I'm bringing this point up here is that we want to eliminate the question. And what I mean by that is you want to tell people the who, what, how. The who, what, how is what's going to really sink in, and it's going to allow them to either ask questions or give them space for you to start the conversation back. Networking gets weird, and we want to make sure that we're making it as comfortable as possible, because when you're relaxed, you're going to be able to make that relationship, and they are as well. So an example, and I have two different types of intros I use, but for example, my who, what, how is my name is Darcey Elizabeth. I'm a networking lead strategist. I help entrepreneurs generate numerous leads and opportunities through connection, collaboration, and being seen in their expertise. It tells them exactly who I am. So they're going to see Darcey. They're going to think of networking. Who does she help? She helps entrepreneurs with leads and opportunities. So if somebody's looking for that, they would be like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, leads and opportunities. And then how does she do it? Well, connection, collaboration, and being seen their expertise. And then if you're like, okay, I kind of see where you're going with this, with the who, what, how, you can even do it on another way where I would introduce myself as the founder of Claim Your Network. The difference between this is where I'm pitching. You can always change your introduction depending on the room you are in. So if I am somebody who is going into a networking event with large business owners, I'm going to say I'm the founder of Claim Your Network, because in that room, I'm most likely pitching for sponsorships or our magazine or collaborations or holding their events, because we do that as well. Where I say a networking lead strategist if I'm in the room with beginning entrepreneurs, right? So what this does is you can always pivot your introduction. I think sometimes we get so uniform, like this is my introduction, this is what my coach told me to say, so here it is. But I want to also challenge you where you want to make sure you're serving the audience that is in that room. So if you're in this room with these amazing entrepreneurs, you can make sure that your I help statement is directed towards the way you could serve them. All right. And we'll open this up at the end too if people want to perfect their introduction. And I do free 20-minute introduction audits as well. So that's just a way to kind of give you like, hey, how can we take out that guessing game in our introduction? Instead of saying, I'm a networking strategist and just leaving it at that, when I give them more information, they almost feel that they can ask more questions. It allows them to breathe. And even better, then they're going to respond with a longer introduction. And what the best part about this is with the next part we're going to talk about, which is conversation for follow-up. So you tell them about what you do, right? You tell them about what you do. You have the introduction, the conversation starts. One of the biggest things I always say, if you're feeling nervous or not really sure where to go, let them talk. People like to talk about themselves, so let them have the floor. And when they're doing that, start thinking about how you can add value to them. You want to always make sure you're adding value, because value is what creates the impact, right? So with that, really think about, yeah. Oh, you're muted.
It was thunder, sorry. One of the things that I really like about your description is how really clear and no-brainer it is. So the person listening to your introduction doesn't need to do any sort of mental or acrobats to try to figure out exactly what it is that you do. And I think when, especially working with a lot of coaches and people in these industries where it's not, like you could have, like 100 different niches, we come up with these fancy ways of saying it that requires more interpretation, and leaves people confused. So I really just wanted to point out how clear there's no misunderstanding what you do.
Yeah. And that's such a great point because nobody wants to work already than they are, right? Like we're busy. We're all busy. We're all doing the thing. And when you're in the room virtually or in person, as you said, you want to make it clear. You don't want them to have to really think about it. Because to be honest, too, if it's too complex and they are almost too embarrassed to ask, like, what do you mean? The conversation will stop there. And then that's also defeating the purpose, right? So with that, yes, be clear and allow them to know fully what you do. It opens up the conversation. And when we're talking about having your conversation during networking, really think about the value you can provide, not the service you're going to sell them, right? Not the something you're going to push on them. But for me, I'm always looking, hey, what connection can I provide for them? And when I'm doing this, I would bring it up and say, hey, I got a great contact I would love to introduce you to. I have a client that would need your services. And what's that doing is creating a follow-up. And what I mean by that is you have these conversations, there's a bond, and they instantly feel like, oh, she's going to, send me this information. Oh, she has a contact for me. Oh, she's going to provide this type of value. And at that moment, once you get their contact information, you now are able to make a follow-up. That's not the typical, hey, it was so great to meet you. Who's been there? It was so great to meet you in the call yesterday. I've sent them too, right? Like, hey, it was so nice to meet you on the call yesterday in, Fem City, wherever it may be. But if you could provide a resource to them, the follow-up means so much more. It doesn't feel so like short and ended, right? Because like how far can you take the conversation if you're like, hey, it was so nice to meet you yesterday. It was great to meet you too, right? And then it stops there. So really think about when you are in these networking rooms to create a conversation where you get to know them, and then that can base your follow-up from there. What's really great about that is you now have a bond, right? For instance, me and Christy, right? There's so many ways that we've jumped on calls, we've developed this relationship, and now here we are both giving those opportunities to be like, hey, I can help you here, you can help me. And it's now more of a friendship and it feels way more natural, which I think is something that we want to bring, especially as you brought up, Christy, where we're all trying to do the thing. There's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of different niches where if you just like come together and develop those relationships, it can really help. So I want to read some of the comments. Yes, and it's totally fine about the intro statement, Elizabeth. Yes, I love that. Helping families become the healthiest families on the block. Ooh, I like that. That can be a little slogan too. Healthiest family on the block. Also, one thing I love to do in your intro is like if you have a slogan or something you're known for, like a lot of people put the name of me of like networking queen. And it's because when I first started, I used to always be like, I'm a queen. Now things shifted a little bit, but you get that slogan. So Elizabeth, with you, if you're saying like, yeah, I'm helping families become the healthiest family on the block. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds really appealing. I have a son, so I'm like, yeah, I want to be the healthiest family on the block. It also is creating relatability, so I love it. Amazing. All right. Do we have any questions about introductions or having the conversations when you're networking? You feeling good? Yeah.
Let's see if I can find this button. I want to know what happened to the temporary, use the space bar. Anyway. What kinds of questions do you ask to get people talking in a way that is going to provide you with an opportunity to follow up? Because sometimes I'll try to start a conversation, but then I get lost. I have no idea what to ask or how to get them going.
Yeah. So Christy did it when I got on the call. She said, how did you get into this? Right?
Okay.
Start getting the little bit of the background on them. Because as I said, people do like to talk about themselves, even if they're intimidated. If like you start asking about like, oh, how did you get into automation on a mission? And then she starts to tell her story. During that story,
Okay.
you're going to start to think of the next question. It's also going to allow you to breathe. Like from another standpoint, if you're like, man, I feel like I'm getting all wrapped into the conversation. I don't know where to go. I always tell my clients, like, okay, ask a question. And then when they're answering, I want you to take a big deep breath, like breathe it in and breathe it out, because it allows you to think of like, okay, now what's the next question or conversation that I can keep going with this?
Can I add something
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah, I was to say
Yeah.
there's a follow-up. But add.
Oh, something that I have found, and I learned this in the coaching program that I did was, and this is a practice, asking open-ended questions. So we are trained as a part of the way we converse with other people that we ask closed questions, yes or no, one-word answers. One-word answers means that you have to keep doing the work to continue the conversation. Whereas if you're asking the who, what, why, how questions, they, number one, it pulls them out of the left side of their brain and into the right side of their brain, where creativity happens, but also you have more that you can then pull from to ask the next question and the next question. So I would challenge you to think not just about, I don't know what the question is, but how do I frame the question in a way that's going to give them the best opportunity to elaborate?
Yes. Love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I meet somebody new, how did you get into this, whatever it is they're doing? How about people that I see regularly but I don't have a chance to talk to? Is there a nice what have you been up to? Um,
Yeah. So one
I
thing
feel
you want
like
to
I
bring
put
out
them
when
on the spot if I'm saying, so how's business? And if it's not going well, it's gonna just be a downer.
yeah, correct. I actually never ask people that, especially if I don't know
I hate
them,
that
because
question.
it can, yeah, right. And what if you're having a bad day? We've all been there where you're like, well, today my business is not great. So one thing I always say is like, just be you. So be like, hey, I've seen you a couple times in here. I've been wanting to connect. What exactly do you do again? Or how exactly does that work? And then from there, just like continue the conversation almost like it was with somebody you knew, because that's actually going to build the connection, right? Where if
Mhm.
you're so like if you're in these rooms, like I go to a couple networking event that happens every single month. I'd be like, hey, I've been seeing you here. I think you do. One lady I talked to yesterday, she does all things on the corporate side. So it's funny, that's how we started our conversation. And I was like, I know you do a lot on the corporate side. I would love to hear more about that. Just kind of like letting them have the floor and let the conversation takes itself. Because keep in mind, if there is a pause, she or he are going to ask about you. It's just like the natural human interaction. So if she goes, yeah, I've actually been seeing you too. This is what I do. What do you do? And just allowing you to honestly say what like is on your mind. If
Yeah.
you've been wanting to connect with them, that's a perfect way to like lead into it. And it makes them feel seen. I always say when it comes to community building or networking, two things. You want them feel welcomed in. You want them feel like that warm and cozy, right? Because
Yeah.
if they don't feel that, it doesn't feel good. But also too, like that you see them. Because right then and there, they're gonna be like, oh, she remembers me from the last event. Hey, how are you? And then every time they go to that event, you're probably gonna be one of the first people they go up to.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions regarding conversation or introductions? You feeling good? All right. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about business cards because I have to. I feel like it's in me to always like just bring up this piece. And I know that most of you probably do virtual networking, but I do want to talk a little bit about this just because I think it's really important if you're wondering like how we bring our social media into this. So these are just my generic business cards. What's great about a business card is you can hand it out and it's an actual document that they're going to see later. So I know everybody has a scanner and they're like, hey, come follow me on Instagram. But who here has followed someone on Instagram and then you get home and you're like, what is their handle? What is their handle, right? Especially if you are running a business. Is it under Claim Your Network or do I find her under Darcey Elizabeth, right? So one thing about this is with the card, it reminds them. It also is a great way to get their card. And I like to always bring that up because we're going to talk about like how you can have a networking tracker. And one last thing too, just like as a fun way, if you do have a business card, you can always use this as your signature at the bottom of your email. So these are just basic. You can tell I have two different types. It's all about what room I'm in. If I'm saying like, what is our mission for Claim Your Network? It'd be connect, empower, succeed. Or if I'm doing more of the pitch side, which is membership, events, and consulting. So you can kind of figure out like what works for you. I also talk a lot about promo cards. This is really good if you are doing any type of speaking event, and this doesn't just have to be in person. So say I do this workshop and then the host says, you know, they would love some more of your information. You can send them this digital postcard. And what it does, it just allows them to get into your world for free. I always like to just bring this up because this is where we provide value, right? So this is my way of being like, hey, this is how you can get into Claim Your Network world for free. This is also a great way when you're creating one of these to think about how you can provide value to them as well. So if someone says, oh, you're a podcast host? I'd be like, yeah, actually, I have Claim Your Worth podcast. You know, here's my card if you want to check it out or whatever it may be. An actual document kind of takes out the tension a little bit too. And you can kind of have that breaker of like, hey, here you go. Or they can also give their card back. So on a virtual standpoint, we always want to make sure that our social media matches what we say. And believe me, I'm not here to talk about social media because my main lead magnet is networking, obviously. But you want to make sure that your social media matches just like a business card would. The reason for this is because what is the first thing people do in this time in our life is most time they go to your social media. So this is just a reminder in general to make sure your Facebook or your Instagram tells a little bit more about you, because a lot of times people like to check people out before they actually reach out. And two, if they want to initiate the follow-up, this gives them access to. So that's just as far as like resources to have. And I think it's really important to have some sort of resource to give people if they're looking for it. And also just, as I said, breaks the ice. And then as far as you get their business cards, you get off a networking call and you have all these new contacts. Oh, how many times have we gone to a networking call, meet all these amazing people, and it stops there, right? There was so long where I was meeting all these people and then it stops. You've been into a Fem City call, you meet all these amazing women, then it stops. What if you had a tracker or whatever works for you? If it's, you know, a piece of paper, whatever it is, or even I used to screenshot all the Instagram handles that I would follow. That's a great way too to kind of remind yourself. If you start to track them, it reminds you about them, a follow-up conversation with them, and how we talked about before, little notes about them. So you know how to carry on the conversation. I am going to give you guys our little template that we have for our networking lead funnel, and I'll drop that in the chat at the end. But what's great about this is this takes it to the next level so that you go to a Fem City call, you meet these amazing people, and then you go back to the call the next week and you are with the same people, but you might forget. What exactly do they do? Oh man. And then that person might take it like, well, she doesn't remember me. That's just how women are, right? That's just, or anybody in general are. So I always like to do this because I forget. and I want to make sure that they feel seen. So what I always do before I get on a Fem City call, before I go back into in-person ones that I go to regularly, I just go through there and just kind of remind myself, like, okay, da-da-da. And you can also, with that, it's not so much about the lead, right? Yes, it's a networking lead funnel, but these connections you are having could turn into an opportunity a year or two down the road, right? I recently hosted an event and I had people sponsor the event that I haven't talked to in 2 years. Like, that's cool, right? But it's because I nurtured those relationships. We're always looking for like, okay, I need to meet more people. But guess what? You probably have a big pool already. You just don't have a place where you actually have them. So, and I don't know if this was you, Christy, that told me this about the business card graveyard. Was it you? Yeah. Okay. So a couple weeks ago, we were on a call together and she was like, yeah, because you don't want a business card graveyard. And that is so true. We have all these stacks of business cards that we end up throwing away. But why don't you just put it in a tracker or whatever works for you? So that way, not only do you have all their information, but you guys, you can throw in your email list. They gave you their business card, they're going to want to be on your email list. So it's just a great way to put all your leads into a place and know that they can be like opportunities or whatever they may be. And then, so that is all about the networking lead funnel. But what the main point I want to say there is cultivate the relationships you already have. Yes, we want to keep building, want to keep bringing more people in. But for instance, in this room right here, you have 5 other amazing women that want to help you. If they are on this call networking, I can tell you they're interested. They're interested in collaborating, in connecting, and also bringing more opportunity. And when it comes to really cultivating that relationship, like just be you, be genuine, provide value. I know some people disagree, but I am somebody who's like, give, and then ask. We give at least 5 to 8 times before we ever have an ask in there. And you'll be surprised when you have your ask how many people do jump, right? So that is the basics of networking for conversion. Do we have any questions? Oh, I like your question, Christy, about having 2 different cards. Yes, I also technically have 3 different promo cards.
What's your third card?
Okay, so I have different promo cards, and it all depends on when the season I'm in. So I had a promo card which I'll share with you guys actually in a second, but it was a promo card where we're having a free month into Claim Your Network. So if I was just out and about, like in getting my nails done or whatever, and someone asked me what I did, I'd be like, actually, if you're an entrepreneur, come join us for a month. And literally a promo card that like has the QR code for them to join. And that's just like one I have like chilling in my purse. And then I have another one that was like for my event. So promo cards are really nice because you can give them to business owners, right? If you're hosting an event, you can just drop them off the table. Or like with Christy, with you, any entrepreneur could benefit from your platform. So if there was like for instance, with my event, putting those in the swag bags, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a way to kind of get your name out there and have a QR code so it's easy for them.
Thank you. I have a question actually. What is your opinion on, since we're talking about business cards, what is your opinion about the electronic ones?
Yeah. Call me old fashioned. That is definitely not my first way to go. When you do those,
I hate them.
No, you're not alone.
I feel so much better. I don't want your contact information in my phone until I know you.
Right.
Okay.
And it doesn't help with follow-up.
Point. Yes. Those are 2 of the answers, right? Follow-up. When I put someone's contact information in my phone, guys, I'm going to be honest. I have ADHD, I have a 4-year-old, and I've got this agency that's growing fast. I can't always remember exactly exactly their name. But when you have a business card, it reminds you. And that's why I highly suggest to always put your picture on the business card. Put your picture on the business card. It's a great way to see it and they see your face.
Yes.
And then another thing too, I don't like to give out my phone number. I learned the hard way. I don't like to give out my phone number. So when you take someone's contact information, some of these apps are picking up your information as well. So be very careful, right? You want to make sure that they're not picking up your contact information. For instance, Dot. I have used Dot and I enjoy them, but you got to make sure your setting is so that your phone number is not giving out. I don't know about you guys, but I can't have my phone ringing all the time with potential clients.
Yeah, my phone number and my business phone number both come in on the same phone, but I want you to have the business phone number, not my personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And you even saw my business card that one had my phone number and one didn't. And that's for that exact reason. Because some people I'm like, definitely, definitely if it's that sort of relationship. But if it's just a connection, we can connect through email or on social media.
I really like that point. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. One thing I will say that if you are in a situation where you really want to connect with someone and they don't have a business card, if you do go to their Instagram or their Facebook, just screenshot it with your phone, like I mentioned before. It's a great way to just be like, oh yeah, that is their contact information. So that when you get home, you're not trying to like fumble around in your search to find who they were. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions?
I also just want to say I very much appreciate that so much of what you shared today was reinforcing what we are teaching. You have not participated in a single automation training or anything like that. And you're all about follow-up. You're all about authenticity. You're all about all the things. So I really love it when it just sort of flows naturally. And thank you for validating. For all of those that listen to me, it's nice to hear somebody else, stereo.
Yes. Yeah. And did you guys know that it takes somebody 40 hours before they develop a relationship with you? If they determine if they like you or not, it takes 40 hours. So think about it like this. Say you have this. Yeah, right? Right? So you have this group. You come every Tuesday, say. Guess what? You got to come 40 times before someone would even consider investing in you, bringing them on your podcast, whatever it may be. So just kind of keep that in mind where it is a longer game. Keep nurturing them, and you will really be shocked about the opportunities that will come from relationships that you've had for a while. Mm-hmm. Also, think about your own, like my own self. I'm somebody that like lurks for a bit before I ever invest. Right? So like automation on a mission. I was lurking. I was like checking it out, lurking around. And then finally I was like, okay, this feels good. People buy off feeling. And not that you're going to be for everybody, but if you give them the feeling of you and being authentic, guess what? You never had to change it up. That's one thing I always like to point out. Like if you're yourself from the beginning to end, that's a great journey. You don't have to think about how you act different because that's not easy for anybody. So just really being your authentic self is going to sell to your ideal client.
And that curiosity makes networking fun. So like when you walk into a room, even if you feel intimidated, know that you're also not the only one that feels intimidated. But like, I want to learn new things. Like I really care about what it is that you do. It helps with retention, but it also helps like that also translates into how people like interpret your interest in what they have to say. So I think all of that stuff, that rapport building starts with that introduction. So
yeah. And if you're ever in a situation where you're like, I don't know what to do now, just turn it on them, like make it about them. Do what is going to help you regulate your nervous system, right? It's just like when you're speaking. I do a lot more speaking events nowadays and it gets nerve-wracking. So if I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm fumbling over my words, turn it to the audience, turn it to the person you're talking to. That will allow you to like breathe and regroup, and they will also enjoy sharing their journey too.
Darcey, will you share a little bit about what your programs entail and how people can follow up with you?
I sure will. Let me. Boom. So I will drop the networking lead tracker if anybody does that. You can also use your CRM in automation on a mission as well. I a lot of times put it in there and then my VA will upload accordingly. But just a couple little last minute tips. Have conversations that lead to a follow-up. Ask questions that's going to help you in your follow-up is really a great way to further the conversation. Cultivate those relationships, download the lead tracker, and start networking now. Don't wait until you're launching something. I always say this, like, don't wait, just be networking. Even if you have nothing you're selling right now, just be networking, because when you do launch, then you're going to have a whole crew behind you. And then what we do is we do online networking and we do in person. So what that looks like is if you are somebody who's like, man, I want to meet a group of women, come on in. We are actually doing a free month this month. So if it's something that you want to check out, we are letting anybody in for free at any level. And you just use the code CELEBRATE. So that is for any of you guys that would want to come check it out or just see kind of what it's like. And we are on Circle as well. Yes, let me see if I can find.
Well, so we upload all of the recordings into our knowledge base, Darcey, and I will also share this in our Facebook group. So anybody who missed this, and are you okay with sharing your resources and your special offer in the Facebook group and in the knowledge base as well?
Yes, I will. And then also too, if anybody does want to like perfect their introduction, as I said, I do free 20-minute intro audits. So it's always just like kind of takes the guesswork out of it. Yeah.
Practice.
I switch mine up like every 3 months.
Yeah. As I said, I switch it like in the room I'm going in, right? And I just like make sure I have like that core piece and then it's easier. Yeah. Because if you fumble on your introduction, it makes them question it.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to try to avoid that as much as we can.
Yeah. That's why the core piece went into the chat, but there's other pieces that build depending on what room I'm in and what mood I'm in.
That is true too.
How much coffee did I have this morning?
Yeah. Amazing.
When you start using the lead tracker, if you want to talk ever about integrating so that people are automatically going from your Google Sheet into automation on a mission, there's ways to make that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somehow, however, that's supposed to work. Yes.
It's magic. We wave a magic wand, fairy dust sprinkles. Yes, that's exactly how it goes. Magic.
I need all that.
Okay, cool. I'll do a little video for everybody to show you how a couple different ways that we can do that. Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Anything else you want to share? I have a quick housekeeping announcement. I usually do them at the beginning, but I forgot.
I am good. Housekeeping.
Quick housekeeping. This is going to be our last standalone business booster session. It is not bad news. It is good news. So we are going to change our structure so that every Thursday at 2 p.m. is going to be a business booster and a Q&A session. So meeting from 2 until 3 p.m. on Thursdays. We'll do our Q&A, our business booster will be the first half of our call. So the first 30 minutes will be a business booster training and the second half will be Q&A. And the reason for this being that we have a lot of content that we want to be able to share, and that increases the frequency. And I feel like it is hard for people to make it to all of the different opportunities. So we're going to try to reduce the number of places where we ask you to show up, but also make sure that we're still providing that value. So while the training may be a little bit shorter, I think that most of the time the content is like we can do that in, I call them snackable sound bites. So we'll do snackable trainings, but what we'll be doing is ultimately doubling the number of trainings that we're doing. So you'll get a 30-minute training before we dive into the Q&A. Here's the catch. You have to submit your question. If you have a question for the Q&A call, you have to submit it the day before. So I'm going to, so an email scheduled to go out tomorrow. It's going to give all of that information. It's going to give you links just to tell you, hey, the Q&A Zoom link is not going to change. We're still going to record it. The Q&A part is still going to go on Facebook, and the Business Booster is still going to go all the places that it goes for people to, take a look at afterwards. And on Mondays, you'll get an automated email that tells you what the topic is that we're covering for the Business Booster, and give you the link every Monday for that Q&A form. So that way you fill it out the day before. So by Wednesday, you fill out the little form because you have a question that you want that live support on. And then when we do the Q&A session, we'll go through all of those questions. And the reason that we're switching that up is because we like a lot of times people will come and they don't have any questions. And so then we just sort of shoot the shit for an hour. And as much fun as I want to shoot the shit, I want to make sure that we're answering people's questions that have them. And I also don't like that we say, I don't know sometimes, let me get you an answer. So instead of you having a complicated question that needs a little bit of research, I want to be able to research it and come to the question, the Q&A call with an answer, because then everybody benefits from the answer, not just the person who had the question. So we're going to solve a bunch of like pain points that I think you guys experienced, that we also experienced, just in terms of trying to maintain it all. And also, if you haven't figured out yet, I can't figure out how to automate the second and fourth Friday of every Tuesday, nor can I say the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. So now I'm just going to do away with it altogether. So now it'll all be automated. You'll know what's coming. The event schedule in your app is current, up to date, and live. And the link is going to be in that email too. So little tweaks, more value, better organized. Does that sound good?
Totally works. Yes, that sounds fantastic.
Awesome.
Because yes, I'm one of those people who shows up for Q&A just to listen, because I don't know what I don't know.
Absolutely. And if we have, if we don't have anybody with questions, it's totally fine to be organic and have that as a networking opportunity. It's not like I don't want that to be there. I want to make sure that if people have questions, they get the support that they need and they get it at that time. So that's a piece that's been really important to me. So, okay. Thank you guys so much. And Darcey, thank you so much again for being here and sharing your insights. I don't think it dawned on me that I haven't joined your program, so I will be signing up. I also realized that I followed you on Instagram, because that's usually where you send people, I think, or at least you were when we first started hanging out. And I'm not in your Facebook group, so I just requested to join. So you have a pending invitation or a pending request. So we can spend more time together.
Yay! I love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for being here. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.